there's a big government fight over whether Skynet is okay.
Yes.
Like that's basically the fight. Like, should we have a Skynet or maybe not?
It's even better than that, Tim. The government's like, we want Skynet. We need Skynet, and the AI people are like, I don't know about Skynet. I'm not sure if that's great.
Can we maybe have like a Skynet minus? Hello and welcome to the Bulwark Podcast. I'm your host, Tim Miller. We have a double header for you today. In segment 2, my colleague Sonny wrote a newsletter about how every day we're inching closer to dystopian parody. So I wanted to chew that over with him and do a little pop culture and AI and tech and talk about the Ellisons. So stick around for that in segment 2. Also, it's kind of a little bit of a preview of something else I've got cooking up for you guys. Starting tomorrow night, Wednesday night, once a week, I'm going to pretend like I'm a live streamer. Okay, so I'm going to do we're trying out the streaming platforms. You can still get us on Substack and YouTube, wherever you get us, but it's just going to be me. I'm going to be taking your Q&A. We'll talk about politics. We'll talk about other shit that's on my mind too. And I'm going to try to copy the other streamers and take what they do well and then do some Tim stuff, and we'll see how it goes. It's kind of like what we did on State of the Union night, but without having to watch Donald Trump. So seems like you should like that. Come check us out. The first one's going to be Wednesday night at like 7:30-ish my time, Central Time, 8:30 Eastern. So up first, we got to get serious, though. She's on Substack at Diplomatic, and she's a member of the editorial board at Just Security, longtime foreign policy writer. I've been following you on social media for like a decade now. Good to finally meet you. It's Laura Rozen. How you doing?
So great to meet you.
Maybe even longer. You're at Politico?
Yes.
Give us a little bit of your backstory.
I was, during the Bush administration, I was freelancing for like the American Prospect, and I went to foreign policy during the Obama administration, then Politico, and then I was at Al Monitor for 8 years covering the Iran negotiations, and then I've been at Substack for about 4 years.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, I was following you back in the foreign policy days, so it's been a minute. I wanted to grab you, get you because this is the nature of the Donald Trump's Steve Bannon flood the zone with shit element, is that sometimes it's hard to figure out signal and noise and figure out what is happening and what matters and what's not. And I was following your reporting and like eyeing what was happening in Iran early this year, and those negotiations were happening in January and February, but didn't really like have anybody on the podcast because there was a lot of other shit going on. We were killing people in Minnesota and there's other stuff to cover. And I was like, well, we'll wait and see if this actually becomes a thing before we start to dial in on it. And so I went back and looked at your reporting, and I was like, I thought it'd be valuable to just kind of take the lens back for people a little bit to where this started. And I was looking at your Substack, February 12th. Trump signals interest in an Iran deal. February 17th, Vance said Iran talks went well. February 24th, Iran wants to make a deal. How did we go from that period in February to bombing a girls' school? Like, can you walk us through basically what happened?
So I think one of the elements is that, since the protests in January when Trump started to talk about sending the cavalry to help the Iranian protesters. Israel called him, the Gulf states called him. Israel said, don't do it till you have more force in place to protect us. The Gulf states said, don't do it. So I think Trump was either keeping his options open while he moved the Armada, to Iran and was doing negotiations. It could have been a ploy to get the forces in place, or he was trying to test out with Jared and Steve Witkoff if he thought there was a good deal available. I've been on a couple backgrounders with them since the war started, and I have to say,
backgrounders with Jared and Steve,
senior Trump administration officials.
Got it.
And they were describing the negotiations, the 3 rounds that they held before 2 Saturdays ago when Trump started bombing. And I was struck by 2 things. The senior Trump administration, one, said, we came back to Trump after the last round 2 weeks ago and said we could probably get you a better deal than Obama got, but it would take some time. It wouldn't be tomorrow. And secondly, by how much senior Trump administration official 1 and 2 misunderstood the Iranian positions. They, are not experts on the nuclear issue. They did not bring experts with them. One of the officials was describing things about the Iranian program that are not threatening and was, obsessive. Anyhow, so they're, maybe they not only could have gotten a deal, um, but they didn't understand sort of the Iranian position very well, which is not crazy because it takes time.
Yeah.
So, and they didn't have time.
I have a couple of follow-ups on that. So initially the Arab states didn't want him to do it, because that's something that's been hard for me to kind of tell, because there's been some reporting that MBS was kind of back channeling to him that he did want them to go after Iran, and obviously UAE. It feels like UAE's position is like different privately and publicly. Like, what's your sense?
I don't know on MBS if he was privately lobbying. I mean, all those countries except Oman and Qatar, I think they hate Iran and they don't like the Islamic Republic. So it's and if it wasn't going to blow back on them, I think they're not sad to see Iran pounded. But it does blow back on them. They knew it was going to blow back on them. I think they've seen the U.S. intervene in the region before and then leave the region to clean up the mess. And I think there are also different outcomes that are not good for them that might be good for Israel. And I think they're very sensitive about that.
Back to the negotiators, our pals, Steve and Jared. Jared isn't in the administration, right? What is Jared's role exactly?
It's interesting because you saw when Trump was trying to get the ceasefire on Gaza and get the hostages out, Witkoff was going and going and going. And I think that Kushner did play a successful role in helping organize an effort that, when Israel finally hit Qatar, Trump saw an opportunity that he could force Israel to accept a ceasefire. And they tried to get this 20-point plan. But I think that what Trump has misunderstood about Witkoff and Kushner's success on that is that they speak for Trump, and Israel will ultimately do what Trump insists. And I think we've seen as Kushner and Witkoff have tried to apply their 20-point model to Russia, Ukraine, and Iran, they don't have the same, magic silver bullets, right? And so, but it seems like Trump's not expanding his negotiating. There's only like 5 people involved in these decisions, and they're not, even if you wanted to have Jared and Kushner and Witkoff do all the negotiations, you should have a small team of people they trust, Iran expert, a nuclear expert, right? Because no one could know it all.
And particularly in the Iran situation, for example, Jared is business partners with MBS, who is hostile to Iran, right? And so it's like, I just, not forget about it. You don't have expertise, but you also have conflicts.
I took from Kushner's, the backgrounders, that they wanted to give Trump the option. Trump was looking for the option. These guys, were doing their best. They didn't totally understand the other side. They weren't bringing the team with them who could help them. They were doing the Russia-Ukraine negotiations in the middle of the last Iran negotiations. They met with the Iranians, the Omanis. They did 3 hours meeting with the Ukrainians and their Kremlin friends, Kirill Dmitriev in Geneva, and they went back. And then they went to Washington. It's a crazy way to do, matters of war and peace.
Just on a different pod with JVL, and he's talking about how he relies on dependable clothes. Like, he looks for a couple of items that he knows are good, and then he just buys 100 of those. That's maybe the maximalist position on this, but in general, we all feel that way. We're looking for something dependable, and one thing that you can always depend upon is the clothes from our friends at American Giant, especially their full zip hoodie, the greatest hoodie ever made. I've been loving American Giant since even before they were a sponsor. That greatest hoodie ever made back when we lived in California. My husband lived in that. It's hoodie weather all the time. Some people say it's perfect weather in the Bay Area because it's hoodie weather all the time. Drove me kind of insane. But if you're a hoodie person, you can't do better than the American Giant hoodie. I also like their kind of staples, long sleeve tees. I got a fun little flannel button up I got from them. Lot to work from. Go check it out. American Giant makes staples that are anything but basic. They get the premium slub crew tee, no BS high-rise pant, and slim roughneck pant. It's all born from a commitment to support the communities that create its products. Every American Giant piece is made in America and designed to last, no exception. Stay ready for anything with the American Giant Classic Full Zip and save 20% off your first order at american-giant.com when you use code Bulwark at checkout. That's 20% off your first order at american-giant.com, code Bulwark. So when Vance was thinking that the talks went well, I guess, does it seem like there were misunderstandings inside the White House, or that these guys, Kushner and Witkoff were kind of out on their own doing the negotiation? We'll see what happens. Vance was, more interested in that. And meanwhile, the war planning was happening over here on a different side of the operation.
I think all of the principals are always loath to say anything that would box Trump in. And you even see that. I go to the State Department gaggles, and there are experts in the department they could bring down to talk to people about Iran, but they're afraid to do it because those guys might say something that the president will contradict the next day. So they never want to get out ahead of him. And you see, even on the State Department tweets and stuff, that they basically just retweet Trump statements, Trump speeches, and they try to find excerpts that they can use to, and that was partly why you saw them be caught so flat-footed on helping Americans get out of the Gulf when this war started. It was totally an afterthought, and they didn't really start.
Because why? Because presumably nobody that for whom, if you had an interagency system, you had the State Department, you have the Assistant Secretary of, traditionally, you'd have the Assistant Secretary of State in the meeting saying well, if we're going to do this, we also got to remember we've got this, that, and the other thing in the region. And that wasn't happening, or they weren't.
Yeah. And Trump made the decision last minute. It's Kushner and Witkoff come back from Geneva on the Thursday. Friday, we know Trump made the decision to do Operation Epic Fury. Saturday morning, overnight, Israel killed Khamenei and the U.S. started bombing. So they wanted an element of surprise, maybe to give the Israelis the element of surprise. They were relying on the military to do all the planning, and somehow it was an afterthought.
You talked about how these guys didn't really understand the Iranian mindset. That continues to kind of be the case, it seems like, as we kind of now push to forward looking and what they might want to come to the table on. You wrote that you think that there's a fundamental misunderstanding of the Iranian thinking. There was a Reuters report that the IRGC is firmly in control and they intend to continue launching drones and missiles and to cut out vital energy routes. Meanwhile, Trump is trying to act like this thing could be over tomorrow. What's your sense of the Iranian
for
thinking?
instance, for those of us who were trying to figure out what Trump was doing a couple weeks ago, he kept saying the Iranians just have to say they never want a nuclear weapon, right? He kept saying they won't say the magic words. So the Iranians came to the last negotiation, and their 5-page proposal had a cover letter that said, Iran will never get a nuclear weapon. And they've said it over and over again, but somehow Trump doesn't hear it. But the senior Trump administration officials were then kind of mocking that Iran had put that declaration on the front of their 5-page proposal. The Iranians were trying to understand this administration. These guys don't really understand the Iranians. The two negotiators misunderstood. The last Iranian proposal, for instance, said we won't enrich for 5 years. And then they had various things they wanted to do after 5 years. That's a really good deal. And they said that they would never accumulate enriched uranium again. And by the way, the Iranians thought they were going to negotiate. And these guys basically seem to be under instructions to bring Trump back a take it or leave it deal, and which is a really hard way, to reach a deal.
And so you think that misunderstanding was based on the fact that there's nobody in the room who could really level with them, that it was a language barrier, history barrier, that they didn't actually care, they didn't really want a deal, it was all kayfabe, and Trump just wanted to bomb? Trump was going to do whatever
I
Bibi
think there's
wanted.
cultural differences. I think that they didn't have time. I think it takes time, a few
Yeah.
more rounds. Um, I think they didn't bring experts who could have advised them, even though they have them in the US government, if they wanted to, avail themselves of them. And I think that, Trump is listening to Netanyahu, he's listening um, to other voices. So maybe there wasn't a sincere interest on the US side in getting a deal. And also by the time you move an armada, to the region, maybe it becomes harder to just say we got a good deal and we're going home.
Well, and then you have Israel that maybe didn't want to deal at all, right? I talk a little bit about that. I mean, one of the problems, I think, one of the potential issues, this is from my perspective, you tell me, is that like on the surface level, Israel and Trump are really aligned, like you said at the start, that like they, kind of want to do what the other wants. But now, as we get into the more challenging kind of questions about how to go forward, it seems to me, based on my reading, that Israel would be happy with like a really desiccated Iranian state and that has infighting and whatever, and Trump would rather have a Delcy Rodriguez type Iranian come forth and so this part of the situation here might have been just kind of a lack of alignment on
I think that's right.
each side wants.
I think that they probably were aligned on degrading Iran's missile capabilities. Sure. And, Israeli analysts have been on Twitter and writing publicly that for Israel's realistic security needs, they want Iran to be so consumed with what's happening internally that they can't export threats externally, right? So, that means that a civil war inside Iran, using the Kurds, using the different ethnic groups to go after each other, um, bombing the oil facilities, having kind of tumult inside Iran might be an outcome for Israel that is better than the status quo before January. I think that Trump's Gulf uh, allies um, remember Syria and how much, how many refugees, how many drugs, how much ISIS terrorism can come from a civil war. So I think that they're not going to want to see Iran descend into total, failed states. So, and today you heard Defense Secretary Hegseth at the briefing. He started reasserting these kind of, we don't like democracy promotion, no more, he said, mission creep. He was really walking it back to just, we're going to hit the missiles, the defense stuff, and then we're done. So I think they're starting to signal that they're heading for the exits.
I guess, though, Trump sounds different. I mean, Trump is just all over the place on this, right? So sometimes, like within the same answer to a question, he'll be like, this is almost over. We're way ahead. We've already won, basically. And then he'll ramble. And then the end of the question, he'll be like, but we do want to control the Strait of Hormuz still. And, we want to see who we're going to put in power. And I get to pick who's in power. And so it's incoherent, right? So like on the one hand, you've got Hegseth talking about how he doesn't want to do nation building. And then you've got Trump saying he gets to pick who the next leader is. I don't know how do you make those two things align?
They've been all over the place. They have, but there was a line from what Trump said yesterday that stuck out to me. We want a system that can lead to many years of peace. And if we can't have that, we might as well get it over with right now. And I think this may be wishful thinking on my part, but combined with some other things Hegseth was saying and some other things Trump has said in the past 24 hours, I get a sense that they're going to finish this military mission and they might leave Iran to sort out its internal governance itself. They've gotten the guy that Israel killed, Khamenei, was 86 years old, this supreme leader, very hard line. But his son, by all reports, is worse. And the one thing about Khamenei, the father, who's dead now, um, you know, he was the one who said we're not going to get nuclear weapons. It was like a fatwa. Even if that's not good enough for the U.S., that was his public line. We don't know about Mojtaba Khamenei. So to have this intervention and you get a supreme leader who has the same, from the same family, who's even more extreme. This is not Delcy Rodriguez. This is not a softer regime. This is not what the Iranians who were on the streets in January wanted. But I don't see the US. um, it doesn't sound from the recent statements from Trump that they're going to be the ones to try to, bring a democratic regime to Iran.
So looking ahead to what is next, just maybe Trump ends up just pulling the plug on this. I'm a little skeptical that Israel would want the younger Khamenei in there. And obviously Israel has a lot of intelligence assets. And I think seems pretty likely that they'd be able to figure out how to kill him if they wanted to. And so that's a wild card out there. Meanwhile, Israel is saying they expect to expand their offensive against Lebanon even after the Iran war ends. I noticed that Lindsey Graham, when he was mentioning on Fox that we were going to march through the world, getting rid of the bad guys, he mentioned Cuba. He also threw Lebanon in there. So there is potentially something there. What do you see?
Yeah, I mean, that's been a little bit lower on my radar, but, Israel, because Hezbollah started to attack Israel again, Israel used that as an opportunity to start attacking Lebanon again. And, they told all of South Beirut to evacuate. And it's been, um, if you're on Zooms with Israelis for these think tank events in recent days, people are going to the shelters, sometimes from Iranian missiles, sometimes from, missiles coming from Hezbollah in Lebanon. So I would be surprised if the US gets directly involved. What do you think is happening with Graham? I mean, I've been slightly confused about.
I have some audio of Lindsey Graham. Let's play a little Lindsey Graham. I've got some audio of him that we can listen to.
We're going to blow the hell out of these people. This regime is in a death row now. It is going to be on its knees. It's going to fall. And when it falls, we're going to have peace like no other time.
But America First is to kill people who wish us ill with a record of trying to destroy us in the region, to take them off the table.
I mean, he seems like a rabid animal with blood in his mouth right now. I think he's very excited about his success in persuading / manipulating Trump. There's another clip that's too long for me to play, but like where he talks about basically he treats Trump like a 9-year-old, and he just like about the games that he was playing with him to try to manipulate him into wanting to do this stuff. But you hear in that last clip how he's trying to redefine America first. I think he feels like as long as Trump thinks that he's winning in these situations, Venezuela, Iran, etc., that he can keep him focused and going on that, and that's going to appeal to him more than, the boring JD Vance pitch.
Right. I mean, and yesterday, I don't know if you saw that Graham was really lobbying the Saudis to start attacking Iran, and it was very strange because I happened to be on a Zoom with Saudi analyst at the same time, and it did not go over well. They're defending them. They are defending themselves militarily from some incoming from Iran. And one analyst was very derisive about Graham, sitting, egging them on, 15 hours away. And the other thing is, I don't think the Pentagon needs Saudi Arabia to help. They're having no difficulty finding things to bomb in Iran, and they have plenty of planes and munitions to do it. So I don't understand Graham's obsession with getting the Saudis to declare that they're offensively going to attack Iran, except perhaps that Israel might see that as vindication for their strategy in the region.
Can I offer the, you do serious coverage, you listen to diplomats, you read diplomatic cables. Can I offer the everyone is 12 theory of politics? Mm-hmm. Lindsey Graham likes things to blow up. Mm-hmm. Donald Trump likes to feel like he's winning in the game, and rebuilding the hollowed out cities in the industrial Midwest is a lot of work and challenging. Like helping the forgotten man find work again is challenging. Waiting for Jared, his son-in-law, to negotiate with some Iranian is that takes time and patience. Killing people and saying that you took out bad guys is something that appeals to the inner 12-year-old. And I really think that it's kind of as simple as that.
I think that's right. And Graham's had to kind of suppress his inclinations with Trump on Russia, right, and Ukraine. He keeps talking about these sanctions on Russia. He's going to do. He's been talking about it forever, and Trump never tells him to pull the trigger.
Because Trump's not going to kill Putin.
So,
right? He can't get him on board for that.
He's not going to do sanctions on their own.
Right? Yeah, we've eased their sanctions on them. Huge. This has been. Can you just talk about that for a second? This has been a huge win for Russia, actually. This war, and gas prices going up is helping them, and we've eased sanctions on them. I mean, they're in economic tough straits, and this is
right. And then also
really
the West, depleting their supply of things they would have been giving Ukraine or under Trump selling to Europe to give to Ukraine. So, there's a competition for Patriots and air defense and interceptors, and it's all going to the Middle East. And you could see that some of these Pentagon officials, Eldridge Colby testifying last week, having to kind of swallow a lot of their.
Yeah. What is your, you've been following the Eldridge Colby. For people who don't know, Eldridge Colby is kind of like the, I would say like the bureaucratic J.D. Vance of the administration. Right. He's been representing, the isolationist wing,
or the pivot to Asia wing.
Yeah, at a staff level.
Right.
What is your sense for how he's processing, being bombing
I'm not
Iran?
a huge expert on him, but similar to Vance, you can see that this is probably not the policy they would have chosen, but that they work for the person who is doing it, so they're, don't you sense kind of the body language?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a complete opposite of the policy. Now, J.D. Vance, I think, is a sociopath, so he's whatever. He'll figure it out. But Colby, it was a mission, right? Like Colby basically was fighting for decades, and there are a couple other people in the administration that were fighting against the more interventionist Lindsey Graham, neocon, whatever you want to call it, wing at a staff level, and they felt like they had won.
So maybe that's Graham's exaltation, is that he won the internal policy. Yeah,
for sure. Last thing, I will shout out my man Sean McCreesh at the New York Times, who was at the press conference yesterday that Trump had. I don't love playing Trump's voice on the pod. I usually don't, but in this case, I think it's important to hear their back and forth on the attack on the girls' school. Let's listen.
You just suggested that Iran somehow got its hands on a tomahawk and bombed its own elementary school on the first day of the war. But you're the only person in your government saying this. Even your defense secretary wouldn't say that when he was asked, standing over your shoulder on your plane on Saturday. Why are you the only person saying this?
Because I just don't know enough about it. I think it's something that I was told is under investigation. But tomahawks are used by others, as you know.
Superb question. And do you remember when the Saudi then Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman had the Saudi journalist butchered, Khashoggi?
Of course.
And do you remember Trump saying, "Oh, they told me they didn't do it"? There's a certain kind of lie he has when he knows that nobody believes him, and he doesn't mean anyone to believe him. This was in that category of lie. But you saw John Kennedy, the senator from Louisiana, show how you can answer it. I don't know if you heard him, but he sort of said, "It's terrible. We didn't target it. It was a mistake." And he was kind of modeling how you could own up to having done this thing that was a mistake.
Yeah. And anything else out there that you're watching that we're not, that you think people should keep their eye on as we monitor how this is going to develop?
The one thing I was thinking about overnight is, do you remember when Greg Bovino got fired in Minneapolis and they sent Tom Homan? And they didn't say when they were doing that we're getting out, this was a mistake. But then you saw that, we're taking out 200 people, we're taking out 1,000 people. I kind of got the sense that that's the pivot that's happened in the last 24 hours on the Iran war. They've decided we're going to finish going after the missiles, blah, blah, blah. And then we're going to wrap up the military part. That's the sense that I have here.
That's Laura Rozen. Her Substack is diplomatic. She's been following this for a while and listening to the senior administration officials, trying to decode the Kremlinology of the Trump administration, and we appreciate it. Thanks for coming on the pod.
Thanks for having me.
Up next, Sonny Bunch. Why do most of us want to learn a new language? It's probably not about maximalizing your vocab. It's because we want to speak it out in the real world with real people. And Babbel is an app that gets you there fast. Their bite-sized lessons fit easily into your daily routine and are also easy to remember. Just 10 minutes a day is enough to start seeing real results. Babbel recognizes real-world connections are at the heart of language learning. Their courses are designed by over 200 language experts to teach you relevant words and phrases you'll actually use. You can start speaking with confidence in as little as 3 weeks. Babbel lets you produce real-life conversations step by step without the stress. You'll build the confidence to speak up when it matters, from ordering a coffee to chatting with new friends abroad or at home. One of my buddies was showing me his Babbel the other weekend, and he's doing 4 languages at once, an overachiever. And he's I can't even remember all the languages he's doing, and he's remembering words for every language. You can tell he has fun with it. You know, a little 10 minutes a day, 10 minutes on this language, 10 minutes on that language. It's good. I've been using it with Toulouse. Sometimes we're waiting for dinner, and the 8-year-old's starting to get a little antsy, waiting for the food to come. We'll play a little Babbel on our phone together. She's already learning French in school, so I can learn a little bit on the side. It's great. And if you want to join along with us, here's a special limited time deal for our listeners. Right now, get up to 60% off your Babbel subscription at babbel.com/bulwark. Get up to 60% off at babbel.com/bulwark, spelled BABBEL.com/bulwark. Rules and restrictions may apply. All right, we are back. He is the culture editor here at the Bulwark. He's a man of culture. He also hosts the podcast Across the Movie Aisle, and the Bulwark Goes to Hollywood. It is Sonny Bunch. What's up, brother?
Tim, thanks for having me on. I always love to be on the Tim Miller Show.
And we're going to get to see you in Dallas. We'll be together March 18th. We have a good show coming together. We also have a show in Austin, March 19th. There's still tickets for that one. So go to thebulwark.com/events if you want to come hang out with us in Austin. I wanted to chat with you about a couple of things. The first thing that caught my eye was in your newsletter. You wrote, every day we inch closer to a dystopian parody. That's kind of something I've been feeling. You mentioned a few things. You start with OnlyFans, 100 millionaires. I'm throwing on top AI MAGA girls that have millions of followers.
Sure.
You talked about AI George Washington. Glenn Beck is having a weird conversation with him. We can gamble on nuclear war now. There's a big government fight over whether Skynet is okay.
Yes.
Like that's basically the fight. Like, should we have a Skynet or maybe not?
It's even better than that, Tim. The government's like, we want Skynet. We need Skynet. And the AI people are like, I don't know about Skynet. I'm not sure if that's great.
Can we maybe have like a Skynet minus, something that can spy on people, but doesn't have like total power over the entire populace? Talking about just living daily life, the video scroll that is now being taken over by like AI slop and like people scrolling through things here on YouTube. Now, I'm kind of offended. There hasn't been an AI Tim Miller yet that I've seen, but there's AI George Conway, Rachel Maddow, George Will, and I've had real humans tell me that they've been tricked by this. And you go to these YouTube feeds, and some of them are getting more views than me. So anyway, combination of a lot of things, but a lot there. But where are you on the dystopia beat?
Well, we were discussing this before. The question here is, are we just getting older, right, Tim? Is like, do things just feel weird because we're getting into middle age? We've got kids. We're trying to figure out life and navigating it. What's it going to be like for them? But I think we're pretty close. Every time I see a Paul Verhoeven movie.
What?
Pretty close to the dystopia. We're pretty close to the dystopia. So every time I watch a Paul Verhoeven movie, and he's the guy who made Robocop, Starship Troopers, are like a Total Recall, are kind of the movies in those veins. He also made Basic Instinct and Showgirls. Less relevant here. But every time I watch
Showgirls is going to be relevant later in the episode. But
we'll come back to Showgirls. But every time I see one of these movies, there are things that happen in them that are patently absurd. For instance, just like the news reports in the Robocop movies about nuclear explosions in the Middle East and South America, whatever, that could easily happen. The board games that these people are playing are like nuclear war. I attacked your Kamchatka or whatever. Like it's just insane stuff. But it does feel very much like something that could happen today. And there are other things. I am a big booster of the Terry Gilliam movie Brazil, which is a movie about the ways in which faceless bureaucracies destroy the human spirit. And we are I am a big squish on immigration. I am not, you know, I have complicated thoughts, but one thing I really don't like is the idea of masked government agents grabbing people off the street and taking them to hidden prison camps and moving children around the country and not telling folks where they're going, shipping people overseas without telling them. And that is dystopian shit, man. That is absolutely, you know, again, Brazil, 1984, whatever. That is not what I want. That's not the world I want to live in.
Yeah, I agree. There's two elements to this I want to kind of tease out. Like the fact that like the Trump administration has some dystopian qualities, I think that can just be kind of stipulated. The masked men in the streets, as you mentioned, the weird agitprop coming from DHS, you know, about how families should act. I mean, there are some 1984 elements to it. Then there's also just kind of like the way that technology and society is going with AI and with the prediction markets and, you know, with the way that people are consuming information on their phones. And it's that side of it, you know, back to your point about whether or not we're just getting old or whether this is something that people should be deeply concerned about. That's something that I have been trying to think a lot about. And I think about there's the Mad Men scene where the executive assistant dies and they're writing her obit. And the guy says, she was born in 18 something in a barn and she died on the 37th floor. She was an astronaut, right? Like we are not the first generation of 45-year-olds to go through like some dramatic change where it was like, you know, and that person, if you're born in 1898 or whatever, you like rode horses. Like, and by the time you died, like there was television, beaming stuff in from the other side of the world, right? So other people have gone through dramatic change before, and dramatic change that was net positive generally. I don't think anybody thinks we should go back to the 1890s, not even the MAGA revanchists, right? And so, like, are we just going through that, like a particularly dramatic change in technology, then we come out the other side and go, oh man, look at all of the human flourishing that's happening, or not? And I kind of fall on the side of not, but it's an interesting thing to noodle over.
I honestly don't know, because look, there's a counter argument to what all of my doomsaying here, which is like, look at the utopia in science fiction. Look at Star Trek, right? You know, they have all this technology and it leads to a society where nobody actually needs anything, and you know, they can travel to stars, whatever. Maybe that's where we're headed. Maybe that's where we're headed. But I do think that the radical I think two things have happened kind of simultaneously. One, everybody has a supercomputer in their pocket now. You know, you have access to all of the world's information. And they use that supercomputer to sit there and mindlessly scroll through Instagram, watching sometimes just funny videos, but like oftentimes videos that are designed to trigger actual chemical responses in your brain that keep you angry, addicted, going more and more. And this is my big theory of the moment, is that putting a magical endorphin box in everybody's pocket and tying it to their news feeds, tying it to their bank accounts. We can debate the nature of sports gambling and the prediction markets and whatever. But I think all of this.
Having some friction would be good. Like having the right to gamble on things, but having this friction, like, versus being able to instantaneously, you know, make these sorts of. This is we are, you and I and the rest of the Bulwark people are very often accused of changing all of our beliefs on many things. Yeah. And you have changed everything. You're big. Me, I've changed nothing, Tim. I've changed nothing except for I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Yeah. But I like, the one big thing I have changed on in the last 5 years is online gambling. I used to be like, yes, people should be allowed to gamble on their phone. That's great. Do it. It's fun. People should have the right to do that. And now I'm kind of like, country. Now I'm like, I don't know. This seems bad. All of the ads everywhere, again, just the addictive quality of it. And the fact that you are playing against the house in ways that the house will take away your right to play if you win too much. Like, that drives me a little bit bananas. There's like neuroscience around this. Like, I've been starting to I want to check my priors on this. Like, I don't want to be a doomer. I really don't. Like, by nature, I'm not a doomer. I know people listen to this show that they find that hard to believe. Like, I was like really techno optimist. I was an early adopter to a lot of stuff in the 2000s, and like thought it was all very cool, and like was very excited for the future. You know, where we would have access to all these social tools. And I just like I've seen what has actually happened. And if you read the science on this, like people that are using ChatGPT or Claude, like their brain waves are not functioning at the same level as they are if they're reading or doing other things. So you can just kind of see people getting stupider over time as they rely on these things. And you tie that to the risk profile of the stuff that you have in your pocket. You tie that to the loneliness, right? Like there's just a lot of things coming together right now that like I don't want to sound like the old guy that's like don't use the new tool. But I do think that like the evidence is pointing us towards a place that like this is damaging to the culture.
I think people are more, look, I think objectively speaking, people are more isolated than ever, right? Like every study shows fewer friends, less time out of the house, fewer, interactions with large groups of people, belonging to fewer organizations. And they have kind of papered that over by being like, no, look, I'm friends with all of these people online. I can. And I do think that I think the real danger of the AI stuff, aside from the fact that we don't entirely understand how it works or why it is telling certain people that they should probably kill themselves and like go on, shooting rampages. Like the what happens is you create an illusion of community and friendship with this thing that doesn't exist. And that is even worse than just being lonely and isolated.
That's creepy. You mentioned David Foster Wallace, The Entertainment.
Yep.
In the column, riff on that for a second.
Infinite. So if I can go full lit bro for a second, which is a thing that doesn't exist. That's not a thing. So David Foster Wallace writes this massive book in the mid 1990s called Infinite Jest, and lots of people buy it and then don't read it because it's very long. It took me like 5 months to read. So it's a real project. You have to sit down and commit to it. But one of the elements of this book is a character in the book creates this thing called The Entertainment, which is basically a movie that is so addicting that people watch it compulsively to the exclusion of everything else. They stop eating, they stop working, and they wither away and die because they're so obsessed with the entertainment. And this is, that joke, it's like a Twitter meme. A tech company builds torment nexus from story. Don't build the torment nexus, right? Like that is kind of what it feels like the entertainment is. All of these companies are racing toward capturing people's attention fully all the time. This is the goal of TikTok. It's the goal of Instagram Reels. It's the goal of all of the short video content that exists to capture attention all the time. And I think the downsides of this are fairly obvious. And that's before you get into any of the misinformation. That's before you get into any of the, agitation. Like it just focusing people's attention on their phone all the time is bad. I'm convinced this is bad. You will not convince me it's not bad. That's my prior.
Your point that the downsides are pretty obvious are, I think it's interesting to look at polling on this. Because one thing, like I feel like elite opinion is a little, particularly elite opinion in kind of DC, New York circles, is a little bit more anti-technology and Luddite and anti-technology company than the general public, right? Like the opinion of Amazon and Meta among like New York and DC journalists and commentators is like 2% support, 98 oppose, right? Like you just overwhelming opposition among most people like Amazon, right? Like it's a useful product for them, right? So there's this disconnect. That disconnect isn't showing on AI. There's an NBC News poll that came out that I wanted to grab. And if you looked, I want to show, they tested what people's favorability is of a bunch of different things, politicians and issues, topics, organizations. I want to read you the bottom four. ICE, of the things they tested. ICE has a 38 approve, 56% disapprove. So pretty bad for ICE. AI has a 26% approve, 46% disapprove. So a lot of people aren't sure yet. But of the people who have an opinion, 20% more disapprove, worse than ICE. The Democratic Party, 30% approve, 52% disapprove. So Democrats should probably work on that. Iran, 8% approve, 61% disapprove. Like AI is really basically only more popular than Iran. And so, to me, that is telling. That like people have there's some part of this that's like scary. There's this unknown. I don't want it to take my job. I'm worried about that. But there's another part of it that people sense. They like are looking at the product. They're seeing what they're getting, and they're like, this is not. There's something off about this.
I think AI has some positive uses. I feel like people who use it to vibe code right are doing some interesting stuff.
I was talking to my buddy who's a lawyer yesterday, just over the weekend, and he does he's like a white hat lawyer, like goes after big companies that are screwing over he's old people. It's like he's kind of like a more serious version of Better Call Saul. He's going to the old folks' home and he's like, you people are getting screwed over by the management of the old folks' home, and we're going to get you a class action lawsuit. Like that's in short of it, his gig. AI is unbelievable for him, right? Because like you can grab all this information, you know, like where he would have had to go hire like 4 legal assistants. So sorry for those people. It didn't get those jobs, and it would have taken them months to go through all the documents in the basement of the, old folks' home. Like, so it can be used for good. On the medical side, people say that, right? Like they're obviously good examples.
Well, but let's drill down on that, right? So you have one guy who's like, yes, I love AI. It makes my job easier. But then you have 3 people who aren't getting a job. And you have 10,000 people who are getting harassed by AI, spam texts, phone calls, emails, who are like, why am I getting this? I don't want to sign up for a lawsuit. What am I doing? And I think that is a lot of people's interactions with AI. And just consider, for instance, going to Google. If I go to Google and I type into Google whatever information I'm looking for, the first thing at the top is an AI thing. And like 4 out of 10 times when I look at that and I know the subject in question, I'm kind of like, I don't think that's 100% right. I need to, what's the sourcing on this? Sometimes I'm wrong, but a lot of the times the AI is not right. It just is like, I think people have enough experience with AI doing things wrong and also killing jobs that they're like, I don't like this. This is bad.
And maybe killing people in the case of the Iranian girls' school to the last segment. We don't know that for sure, but it does seem like it potentially could have been AI targeting on that. Okay, I want to move on to a couple topics. We're going to go rapid fire through a couple other things in what I consider the Sonny oeuvre. The Warner Bros. Discovery getting bought by Paramount. Just a couple of things that in the news have caught my eye on that lately. Ellison said that he promised, quote, CNN will remain independent on a panel recently. I noticed that later in the panel, though, he talked about how it will remain independent in the same way that CBS is independent. And so I think maybe his image in his head of what independent looks like is I'm going to hire a lot more MAGA people and then let them do whatever they want, rather than I'm going to tell people what they have to report. Which is, that's a difference. It's a category difference, but it's still something worth being concerned about. China's back in the deal. Tencent is in the deal. And, we have the Arab nations in the deal. Like, where are we at now on this?
Well, the Tencent and Arab kind of wealth fund things is really interesting because Tencent and Paramount Skydance have kind of a weird, fraught relationship. Remember during the Top Gun Maverick rollout, there was this big fight about Maverick's jacket doesn't have the Taiwan flag on it. They took it off to placate the Chinese. And then there was such a backlash to this that they actually put the patch back on the jacket. They probably like CGI'd it back on after CGIing it off. And then Tencent pulled out of that deal. Like Tencent stopped being a co-funder of that film, which probably cost them like $100 million. But so that was really interesting, and to hear them, and they were excluded from this deal because there were national security concerns. People didn't want Tencent involved in this deal, on the Paramount side of things. So if they're getting back in, that suggests that there is some real concern that the Arab wealth funds, which are, obviously their money comes from oil, which is the price of which is skyrocketing right now, but might not be able to get out because of the Strait of Hormuz. The Iran war torpedoing a large portion of the funding of the Paramount Skydance Warner Brothers deal would be one of those weird quirks of history, one of those weird unintended, consequences, burning a MAGA supporter.
What is your sense of like the stat? I mean, it's not done. Deal's not done, but is this like a deal's not done, but deal's done situation, or are there still major potential hurdles?
Look, as we have seen with the Ticketmaster Live Nation thing, the Trump administration has no interest in fighting like real monopolies. Like Ticketmaster Live Nation, that's a real monopoly. They control 80% of the market there. They have, vertical monopolies, horizontal monopolies. Like they are, and they don't want to break that up. I don't think that I don't think the antitrust division even set aside all of the, MAGA Donald Trump doing favors for people stuff. Like, I just don't think they have any stomach for trying to break it up. I don't think the state attorneys general will be able to do anything either. I get the sense that it's probably just going to go through. It may take a little while. It may take the beginning of next year. But I don't think it's going to fall apart for regulatory reasons, and I don't think it's going to fall apart for money reasons, because Larry Ellison has said he is backstopping the whole thing with his money, and he's got a lot of it. So,
and it's corruption all the way down. I mean, there's corrupt finance in the Ticketmaster deal, big donations happening to the Trump org. I'm particularly annoyed about the Ticketmaster thing. I mean, I'm not like the hugest antitrust guy. I think sometimes we lean a con on here, and it was an interesting conversation because I was like, whenever Lena was talking about like small stuff, like, hey, there's a little monopoly in this niche area, and she was explaining it, I was like, yeah, that's exactly right. Their antitrust is called for in this situation. It's obviously called for in the Ticketmaster situation. People getting screwed left and right on stupid fees, as I know as a frequent concert goer. A lot of times, sometimes in the big, there's like also then a utopian side of antitrust, which is just like, if we just break up Meta into 3 smaller terrible companies, then everything will be okay. I'm like, I'm not really sure that's true, but anyway, that's for a longer day. One other on the corruption thing. Did you see the story about how Trump bought Netflix bonds in December while all this was happening?
I did.
What is the deal with that?
Well, so I don't actually understand that story because I don't understand the difference between stocks and bonds. That's a Catherine Rampell question.
Okay.
But like it's one of these things where like, why is anybody involved in the administration buying these bonds? My favorite part was the quote. Did you see the quote from the White House spokes who was like, no, Donald Trump did not buy this. He has it's a blind trust that his children run. His children run it, so there couldn't be any corruption here. And I was my head exploded because I was like, his children are neck deep in all this shit.
All right, a couple more things in the news. There's some people are upset about 2 different topics. I want to get your take on on my social media feed. One is people are really mad about the great Timothée Chalamet. I will brook no criticism of Timothée Chalamet on any topic, but particularly on this one. Let's listen.
And I don't want to be working in ballet or opera or things where it's like, hey, keep this thing alive, even though no one cares about this anymore. All respect to the ballet and opera people out there. I just lost 14 cents in viewership, but damn, I just took shots for no reason.
That's not a shot. I hear what you're saying. Yeah. So
people are mad at me about that. I was in my social media feeds. I saw like influencers I don't know, like who seemed actually upset. Like one thing I promise to my viewers is I get upset about a lot of things. I don't ever pretend to be upset about anything. I don't pretend. So I don't know if these people were pretending to be upset or if they were genuinely upset. But we can just join together right now and say that Timothée Chalamet did nothing wrong, right? It's fine to make little jokes about the fact that people don't go to the opera anymore. That's just real. It's just reality.
Timothy innocent, 100%. I will say, the outrage here is ridiculous because everybody takes everything in the worst faith possible. It is very obvious what Timothée Chalamet is saying in this interview, which is, I am a filmmaker. I act in movies. I like being in big movies, on big movie screens, in big movie theaters. And I do not want to be in an art form that is dying. And this is
it's a worry for movie actors. People are worried that movies are dying. Yeah,
it's a real worry. To go back to the Paramount-Warner Brothers thing, the Paramount-Warner Brothers deal is kind of contingent upon Paramount saying that they are going to continue to put 15 movies from each studio into the marketplace. And nobody actually believes that's going to happen. And cutting out another leg of the theatrical experience, the content that goes into the theaters is going to be disastrous for people like Timothée Chalamet. And he is right to worry about this. And he's right to say, I don't want to be part of a niche art form that has to beg for its own survival all the time.
Yeah. If you like opera and ballet, that's fine. They're niche. I have niche interests that not
he doesn't even
everybody
say
likes.
anything bad about opera.
Yeah.
He's not like, I hate opera and ballet. I don't want to be like those losers doing in their tights, doing their pliés and stuff.
Also, if you're really mad about the ballet, go to the ballet. Go support it. Tell me who your favorite ballerina is. Okay. Here's another outrage that was out there, and me and you are going to have a disagreement on this.
Yeah.
I know from our private messaging.
Yeah.
The NBA canceled Magic City night next week at the Atlanta Hawks game. For people who don't know, Magic City is a strip club. Atlanta does very well. It's doing good capitalism. A lot of people are going there of their own volition. A lot of people are working there of their own volition. It is a cultural touchstone in Atlanta. They wanted to have a basketball game where they gave out merch, Magic City merch, would have made a lot of money. And the NBA came in and said, no, you can't do this. And I said this is, and in part because this was left-wing Puritanism. We do plenty of attacking on right-wing Puritanism on this podcast. So this was left-wing Puritanism. The complaints did not come from the churches in Atlanta. It came from lefty activists who were like, this is marooned to women. And I'm like, I think that the women that work at Magic City are doing so of their own volition and should be honored for their art form. And I don't think that this is a big deal. And I wasn't keen on canceling Drag Queen Story Hour if people wanted to take their kids to that. And I'm not keen on canceling Magic City night at the Atlanta Hawks. Nancy Pelosi's daughter attacked me over this on social media.
I saw that.
And now Sonny Bunch is on the side of Nancy Pelosi's daughter. Where am I wrong?
Well, Tim, as you know, I'm not really a right-wing Puritan, but I will say that you're insane. I texted my buddy who's the commissioner of my fantasy sports leagues, and I was like, hey, what do you think about Adam Silver doing this? He's like, it's the first thing that commissioner got right. You cannot have at a family sporting event a strip club night. I'm sorry, that's insane. That's just an insane thing to do.
Why?
I don't even care about...
strippers aren't going to be stripping at the game. It's a sponsorship.
What are the kids going to like wear Magic City t-shirts and wear them into school? Like, hey, look what I got at the game. Look what I got at the game, teacher. That's crazy. That's crazy.
I'm sorry. New Orleans. We have Mardi Gras. Come on. Why? Would this have been a problem in Europe? No. That's fine. I think it would have been a problem in Europe. I think it would. I think the Europeans would. And we were talking earlier about friction. I think it's fine that strip clubs exist. I think if people want to go to strip clubs and indulge their appetites, that should be legal as long as you're of legal age. That is totally fine. But I don't think having it kind of out like in a public family setting, it's not ideal. That's where I come down on this. Whatever. Call me, a decadent. I don't know what would be your insult of me. Call me whatever insult you want.
That's a very New Orleans thing. I think that's a very laissez-faire.
La Bonne Roulette. I'll let my child wear a Magic City sweatshirt if she wants to. It's fine. It's not a big deal. Who cares? Okay. Anyway, I thought we weren't doing cancellations anymore. That's all I'm saying. I thought we weren't doing them, but apparently we're only doing cancellations when Sonny Bunch and Christine Pelosi and Luke Cornett or whatever his name was.
Nobody's saying that they should shut down the strip club. You just don't do it in the basketball arena.
Final topic. We're over. I need one hot take about the Oscars coming up, and your newsletter today is about a perfect movie that you saw. I need 90 seconds or less on that.
Hot take on the Oscars. I think Sinners might pull off Best Picture. This would be a big upset. I don't think it's 100% for sure. And it comes Sunday night, I will probably be proven wrong here. But there's a real Sinners momentum building. I think a lot of people really like that movie. It's a lot of fun.
Woke vampires.
The woke vampire movie set in the South. The woke anti-racist vampire movie will possibly win at the Oscars. I think it's entirely possible. It was my favorite of the movies nominated, so I'm pro this.
Really?
I liked it.
Now,
You're
Marty,
one battle after another guy,
does
right?
Timmy get an Oscar for Marty?
So I think Timothée Chalamet probably gets the Oscar for Marty Supreme. He's very good. He's very good.
We could do a whole bonus segment on this. This is the thing about I feel like this about every big actor and actress that I care about. Like it's like you with AI. If you actually know about their career, it's always like I feel like they always get the Oscar for like their 5th best performance. You know, because momentum builds over time, and it's like, why didn't he win for Call Me by Your Name? Why didn't he win for Bob Dylan? Why didn't he win for this? And now it's like, okay, we're gonna give it to him for their 4th best performance.
Well,
That happens.
I think that does happen. That absolutely happens. Usually it happens with older actors. This happened with Al Pacino in Scent of a Woman, right? Kind of famously.
Scent of a Woman was amazing.
He went, well, it's fine. It's fine, but it's like his 10th best movie. Like,
this is my fault. I interrupted you. I already said we were over. Talk to us about the perfect movie.
The perfect movie, Project Hail Mary. Go see it. You'll love it. You'll laugh. You'll cry. You'll be thrilled and exhilarated. Great movie. Go see it. Perfect popcorn entertainment.
Project Hail Mary. That's good. Get a break from your phone, from your doom scroll, from your dystopia. Sonny Bunch. That was great. It's a little preview of what people are going to get to see in Dallas, March 18th. And I don't know. I don't think we sell aftermarket tickets, so you might be boned, but we'll put it online. And March 19th, come see us in Austin, thebulwark.com/events. Appreciate Sonny very much. We're going to have a little something different tomorrow. Okay, so everybody buckle your chin straps, and I think it's going to be enjoyable. We'll see you all then. Peace.